All right. Welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict
Live.
Good to see you guys. It's Friday here, so we're so excited to be here. Hope you had a happy new year, beginning of the year. So we wish you all the best and a very prosperous and healthy 2022. So Friday is here.
We know what we're going to do this year?
What?
Our part, we're going to keep people informed as to what important is going on in the world.
Indeed, Ross, because there are a lot of conversations going on. I'm watching like my Twitter account. There's a lot of great discussions as to, are people waking up of sorts? And there are some that made some comments that some people that just come out and say, hey, I've been following your channel stuff. So they kind of truly appreciate now what we are bringing to the table. So for the purpose of sharing knowledge with you also. So go ahead, Russ.
What do you think of jumping into the headlines right away?
Indeed. Let's do that. Then we'll talk about our other platforms towards the end. So,
okay.
All right, let's see.
Ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
U.S. drones spotted near Crimea's borders.
Indeed, it was the U.S. strategic unmanned area vehicles that was a couple of days ago was on the border of Russia, near Crimea, of course, and all this has to do with the movements of the Russian troops. So how would you interpret this from an international relations perspective or geopolitically? It's basically a provocation. That's all it is. It's kind of because the upcoming talk on January 12th between NATO and Russia. So it looks like the U.S. is testing the waters to see what the reaction will be.
You ready for an animal story?
Yeah, sure.
There are roads all through Africa. Of course there are. And male baboons line up with their backs to the road, playing chicken with the cars, showing who's the strongest, who's the bravest. And a bunch of them get killed.
Wow.
They are our cousins. Wonder who's playing baboon on the highway here.
That's a great example, Ross.
How about former Jimmy Carter? Former President Jimmy Carter.
Former yet.
Yeah. He even established democracies can fall into the hands of dictators.
Wow, that's very interesting concept coming from the 39th president of the United States. Jimmy Carter's still alive. I mean, he was a humane when he was in the White House. So, but it was interesting statement coming out of him that here is a former president of the United States suggesting that even democracies can fall. So that's basically falls into the concepts of empires. At some point, they're gonna have to end or fall, whatever term you want to use. Yeah. I always use the example of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
That's always my example. Of course, the British, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the French, that's just a reality. So I found it very interesting kind of statements coming out of him.
There's something about the United States history, if you do a deep dive into it, you'll see several places where the democracy was almost lost to a dictator.
Exactly.
And that's for real.
You're right.
Saved at the last minute by some good people. Well, how about we go to the 8th round of the talks with Iran on the nuclear negotiations?
No surprise there, at least from my perspective. Well, I argued this before that the 7th round is not going to yield anything. And we did mention that one in one of our live streams. I remember I did a break-in on it regarding that aspect. And I said, don't be surprised. We interviewed Trita Parsi.
Oh, yeah.
He knows, and he was the same conclusion. So the 8th round, I don't expect anything to change because here is one thing that Iran is requesting before they move an inch. The sanctions be lifted, which was the deal in the 2015 JCPOA. That's all they're asking for to move forward. Otherwise, they have no incentive whatsoever to come to what the West is asking for. So despite what you hear, guys, it's just bravado, no more, no less.
To face China, the United States and Japan have pledged to strengthen defense cooperation.
Japan, of course, because it has to do with China, of course. Well, what's interesting about this, it was a video call or video conference call that took place yesterday between Secretary of State and let me get the name right of his counterpart in Japan is Yoshimasa Hayashi. Sorry, Yoshimasa Hayashi. And he was also Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and his counterpart Nobu Kishi. So basically, what they were talking about is how can we form a front to counter China. So it's almost like Japan's history, sort of Japan forgot about its own history and atrocities, what they did in both China and Taiwan. So I found it very, very interesting how now the U.S. is pushing Japan into that direction. So
baboons on the highway.
You're right. That's a great one, Ross.
All right.
That's a great one.
David, have you noticed that there's been a little bit of trouble in Kazakhstan?
Yeah, whoever thought?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And I'll admit, Ross, I didn't see that coming. I'll admit it. I did not see that coming. I've been in that part of the world when I used to travel on behalf of the U.S. government back then, on my way to Afghanistan or to some neighboring or satellite countries. They were back in the orbit of the Soviet Union. And I just didn't see. I knew one thing about Kazakhstan, given the short time that I spent there, the amount of corruption that's going on at the higher ups, way higher ups. But I did not see this coming. I didn't. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to detail a little bit about what the implications from a geopolitical aspect, from an economic aspect, from an energy aspect. Then when we open the floor for you guys for questions, just remember, please put questions so it makes it easier to go through as many questions as we can, because we only have an hour, or actually 30 minutes, or whatever that time is.
Yeah.
So yeah, indeed. I mean, we all heard about the Kazakhs protests or demonstrations that took place recently. Usually it started with the idea of fuel prices went up, specifically liquefied natural gas. And it went up by about, I think, 28 cents or something like that, which to them
almost double.
To them, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what I found very interesting about that, it's maybe that's something the West can learn from, Western people. Because remember when we had high energy prices here?
Yeah.
You know, what did we do? Nothing.
I was going to say, what? We did something? Did I miss that?
We did not. So
You
to
did
me,
nothing.
that was just the idea of how this demonstration sort of was a force to people telling the government, you're going to have, and the government backed down on that. Except now, there has been a slight development. Things have passed beyond peaceful demonstrations and so forth.
Oh, it's real ugly violence.
Yeah.
People are getting killed.
Yeah. And the question for you is, who's behind this uptick in this? So, another word, is this really, and this is a question for you guys, if you can answer it later on in the comments, is this really about energy prices? Or is it something else? And if it is something else, who do you think is behind it? So, and that's to me what I came up with as far as my conclusion, reading from different sources regarding this issue. And why is that important? It is important, first of all, because you need to understand the geo location of Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
So we have a map here that will show you where Elizabeth is going to pull it up for you guys, where Kazakhstan is. Well, where it's located, it is usually sandwiched between Russia and China.
Yeah.
That is very, very important to understand that for geopolitical reasons. And hold on, let me see if I can.
That doesn't look much like a map.
Okay, I'll find it. Don't worry about it.
So
Political map.
that's correct.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the one. Yes.
Okay.
So that was the whole idea of the importance of it. And why is
Okay,
that
here we go.
important is because when you look at the map, you're going to see it does play a role. And this is why the United States was very, very interested in Kazakhstan after 1991. Because what happened in 1991? It was the Soviet Union was
Collapse.
dissolved. So Kazakhstan, as a former enclave of the Soviet Union, the United States took a very, very great interest in it. So there is also another aspect to that. Kazakhstan was the main nuclear test center for Russia, for the Soviet
really?
Union back then. Yeah. There is, if I may pull up, I got the name of that place where the tests used to be conducted, and it was about 600 or 7,000 square miles area located near the city of Sime, Sime. So that's what was very important. Here is the interesting facts about all this. And the reason I'm talking about this because I wrote the book about Russia, so that was part of my research that I conducted. So I kind of did a deep dive into all this to know what's going on with that. And here's what's important about that. After 1991, the United States asked Kazakhstan to get rid of all its nuclear weapons.
We will protect you.
Exactly. The same argument they made for Ukraine.
Yep.
So,
Well, we'll see how well they're protecting them.
yeah. So
The thing is, they couldn't protect them from the internal corruption that's going on there, which seems to be very significant.
yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because the previous president, Nursultan Nazarbayev, he was basically the country was using the resources of Kazakhstan to his benefit, for his family and so forth. Because mind you guys, just to let you know, which usually you don't hear much about it in Western media, is that Kazakhstan is very rich in natural resources. As a matter of fact, there were some information that I came across a few years ago, believe it or not, that the oil reserves in Kazakhstan exceeds those in the Middle East.
No.
Yes, they do. The only problem in Kazakhstan, they are very hard to get to because the rugged terrain.
Okay.
That's from the energy aspects of it, and this is why the U.S. now is taking an interest on this from these aspects. Then there is the geopolitical aspects.
Of course.
Yeah. And why is that? Just to give you guys a broad picture to understand the dynamics of this. As I said earlier, Kazakhstan is sandwiched between Russia and China. Okay. Both countries, Russia and China, share a common objective. And what is the common objective? Is not to have U.S. presence in Central Asia. That's from a geopolitical aspect.
Right.
So, which is very important. From an economic perspective, it is of great concern and importance to China. Why? Because the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI, is going to go through Central Asia. And Central Asia, if there is no stability there, it's not going to work.
Right.
If there is U.S. presence there, they're going to try to undermine like doing in other places. So this is why Kazakhstan now plays the wild card when it comes down to both countries, Russia and China, from a U.S. perspective. In other words, is the U.S. going to benefit from chaos in Kazakhstan?
Well, on the surface, probably.
So, yeah, there is another dimension that we want you guys to know, to keep in mind, because once again, Western media is not going to detail the whole aspects of this long term. The other one has to do with the upcoming talks between the U.S. and Russia, and also between NATO and Russia, come January 12th and 15th. And why is that important? Because if there is chaos inside Kazakhstan, which is close to Russia's border, this is why Russia sent now 1 battalion of peacekeeping forces to Kazakhstan.
And I understand they're on the ground now.
They are indeed. They are indeed. I saw the images yesterday of the Russia military transport taking off Russia on its way to Kazakhstan. So basically, the way I interpret this, and this is my personal opinion, is that NATO and the US wants to play Kazakhstan card to seek concessions from Russia. So because here is, and I don't think so it's going to work, and here is why. Because the former Sergei Lavrov already made it clear that Russia is not going to give up any concessions whatsoever. And here is where the importance of using history as our guide. As a student myself of the international relations sort of trajectory and understanding how you can use history in understanding the trends. If you guys can remember two major events, one of them in Ukraine in 2014, or before that slightly, and one of them in Venezuela after the death of Hugo Chavez. What did we notice in both countries? It's exactly what's happening right now in Kazakhstan. Demonstrations that went beyond peaceful. So
interesting, isn't it?
And it was found out, I did find out in the research, and I documented in my book that indeed the US allocated about $12 million to support
Troublemakers.
Some entities inside Ukraine. It was the same argument was made for Venezuela. So it becomes the question, are we seeing the same, or history is repeating itself in Kazakhstan?
Well, we're certainly seeing Jane Psaki, press secretary, denying it vehemently.
Of course.
We have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with it.
How can we trust Psaki anyway? So,
well, you know, my comment off air was, what kind of a job does she have?
That's very it's very interesting to see those dynamics that's taking place as to why that is the case. So, but here is the interesting thing for you guys to know, and I'm looking for one particular information for you guys here that has to do with why Russia all of a sudden sending the battalion for peacekeeping force. Well, this one was based on a treaty that was signed between all those countries. Yeah. And when I say all those countries, I am referring to Russia, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan.
May I add a comment here?
Certainly, Russ.
China, following its historical precedents, has decided it's an internal event for them. They're not going to get involved at all.
Yeah. And I found it very interesting that you mentioned that one, Russ, because that triggers my mind about something else within the realm of what we're talking about. Did you guys know that the Chinese president just made a phone call to Ukraine? Yeah, it was just about 3 days ago. What is the significance of that? And you know what the significance? That's a subtle way, in my opinion, of letting Ukraine know that Russia is serious about what they're saying they're going to do.
Oh.
That's how I interpreted it. It's not about, why would China even care for? Ukraine is over there. China is over there. But that's usually in international relations. This is how messages are sent in through the diplomatic call, through whatever you want to call it. It's a subtle one. So I found it very, very interesting. So to go back to the idea of this alliance, this security alliance called Security Alliance, it was established in 1992, which is right after the fall or disintegration of the Soviet Union. As I said, those 5 countries, they all signed what's called the Collective Security Treaty. Collective Security Treaty. And Russia holds the leadership on that.
Clearly.
Yeah. Well, not all the time.
They really?
No. Yeah. This is not like the UN or something. They rotate that on a yearly basis. So in 1992. In 1993, what happened? The treaty was signed by 3 post-Soviet enclaves. That includes Azerbaijan, Belarus, and the third one was Georgia. So we all know what happened with Georgia.
No, that
exactly
was a mess.
So. Yeah. 1994, that treaty entered into force. Follow that one in 1994. That's where it entered into force. So it tells you that to tie this back for you guys to understand the geopolitical game that international powers or major powers are playing with all this. This is where you start to realize, is Washington capable of pulling Kazakhstan out of the influence of the Russia? Yeah, and this is where things are going, because I just find out that the Senate, the Congress, I take this back. U.S. State Department requested $10.7 million from Congress to send to Kazakhstan in support of human rights and free media and democratic institutions. Where have we heard this before?
We've heard it all over Southeast Asia. And what it's led to is a lot of people dying.
Exactly. And this is where, a lot of people here in the US have no clue about this money has been allocated for Kazakhstan, even though the US has listed Kazakhstan as on the blacklist for human rights abuses and didn't invite them on the democracy summit. So this is again the double standards. We say one thing and do another. You can't just and this is why I asked you guys the question earlier. Who do you think is behind? I want to jump into conclusions here. It's just when you understand how to analyze geopolitical trends and events, you will get a lead into why country A will do this, why country B will react this, why country C will stay neutral, and so forth. This is where we see the trends going on. So what I found interesting about all this also was the statements in 2019 by the commanding general of the Central Command, General Votel, whom I remember when I was in Afghanistan. And he disclosed to the Senate Armed Service Committee at the time that Kazakhstan is of great strategic interest to the US. So there's always the justification for this. Is why I said earlier, I happen to know a little bit about this because I researched it very, very in detail for my Russia book. And I came away with the conclusion that I can just see why the US will want to have a presence in Central Asia that Russia and China will not like and will not want. So, but now the dynamics are playing on this. This is why you see in those dynamics. So this is what I wanted to. You want to add anything before we open the floor?
I wanted to bring up in the discussion about about the demand for humane treatment and reasonable demonstrations and so on. This has gotten really ugly, with the police now having whoever the military forces are, shoot to kill. Make sure this goes away.
Yeah, it's usually, and this is where it becomes the question of, is this about just energy? That goes beyond that, because there can be peaceful demonstrations without.
This looks like a lot of bottled up frustration in those people.
But this is also a sign for, is someone fueling this from behind the scenes?
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, using history as my guide, I'll go back to two main events that were similar in setting.
Right.
Ukraine back before 2014 and Venezuela after the death of Hugo Chavez.
And I certainly see the Russian troops having a real challenge here, because what happens if they kill?
Which unlikely they won't, because they are coming under the umbrella of peacekeeping mission. Usually there's a clear indication that if they are coming under peacekeeping mission, they have no authority whatsoever to use deadly force. Now, it's a different story if ethnic Russians were targeted.
Oh,
that becomes a different. This is the case in Donbass.
Yeah.
That's exactly what is happening. All Russia's doing regarding the Donbass is that the Russian ethnic group living in Donbass have been sort of targeted by Ukrainian forces, and Russia wants to defend all that. So this is why we wanted to just provide you at least a brief geopolitical snippet into why all of a sudden demonstrations or protests in Kazakhstan are making headlines around the world. So when you read something that looks shaky about human rights and democracy and all that stuff, take a step back and rethink, or maybe watch this video again, because I have not come across information here in the West about what's going on in detail as to where this is headed. But I mean, I know where to look for information, and I happen
we'll update people.
Of course, we're gonna keep you updated on this. So the idea of what was I gonna say?
Well, we're gonna tell people how to get it, how to track us.
For the information because we go into more detail on this, as you know, why we don't do that on this platform, go check us out at geopolitics.locals.com. So, and I just posted a video yesterday about this, detailing some other information there. So check it out, please. You'll find more information there. You all know why. I don't need to keep repeating myself here. So also make sure to check out our membership at geopoliticsinconflict.com. That's where, there are too many. I don't know how Elizabeth's keeping track of all this. I'll tip my hat to her. I just do not know how. It's beyond me.
What do you think? What do you think, David? How about some questions?
Let's do that, because we wanna share as much information with our viewers, and please remember to put a question before that, so Elizabeth, it's easier for her to do it that way, and we won't waste much time on this. All right,
Po Yen So. Just curious, what is your take on the United States wants to send some officials from the Pentagon to the Olympic Games? Are they up to something bad?
Yeah, that's usually it's not, you're not supposed to, if they are high ranking, because remember, the Secretary of Defense of the United States is a civilian, but usually for something like this, you don't send the military representation, you send the civilian representation. So I don't know I don't even know why the US is requesting visas to go when they said they want to boycott the diplomatic representation. So why all of a sudden going back? I don't know. So
there's a word for this. It's called split personality.
Oh,
that's called psycho. Okay, well, we're not going to call it.
So yeah, we don't know exactly why that is, but it doesn't make any sense.
Plato.
Oh, thank you, Plato.
Thank you, Plato. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Plato always supporting us. Thank you.
Village Mastermind. Okay.
There we go. That's a nice way.
Some have called the Kazakhstan turmoil as Belarus 2.0 event. Will this push Kazakhstan further into Russian arms, more Central Asia countries to join CSTO?
That is a great question. And by the way, Village, thank you very much for your comments yesterday. I responded to. It was an interesting comments about the financial stuff. Yes, the answer to that is yes, because it's going to become exactly what took place with Belarus at the time. And because remember, Kazakhstan used to be in the orbit of the Soviet Union. Still now some sort of an understanding between Russia and Kazakhstan. So, and the idea of all of a sudden this turmoil is escalating in the degree of what's taking place raises questions. Is somebody in the West, US or otherwise, concerned about Kazakhstan getting closer to, because that's part of the orbit. So it's I would say yes. So your question is on target as far as your assessment. So I concur with you on that one. So there's and the US will try to pull Kazakhstan back to the West, but after not inviting them to the Democratic Summit.
Also, look at the geography.
Indeed, Ross. Yeah, that's
one of the things we didn't look at is what is the amount of trade that goes on between China, Russia, and the whole system right there. Yeah. Those three countries.
I'm not aware of that one yet.
I'm not.
What I'm aware of is the amount of energy that Kazakhstan has. There are big potentials with that. So the short answer is yes. So it's moving into that direction.
KR540LME.
Interesting.
Is it true the free people of Kazakhstan are asking for Juan Guaido to be their president?
Yeah, it's Juan Guaido.
Juan Guaido?
No. That's I don't know who's saying that. No, that's just nonsense. And the Kazakhs, this is not about democracy, human rights, and this nonsense stuff. No, it's not. Whatever you read this, it's nonsense. So it's just propaganda, basically. That's all it is. No, the new president, because they destroyed the statute of Nazarbayev, which rightly so. Even now, the current president
Yeah.
is asking for the name of the capital, which is the name is Nursultan, to be replaced by a different name, because Nursultan is the first name of the former president.
Oh.
That means what? Even the former president resigned, but he still have political influence. So the political dynamics have never changed. That's where the issue is. So no, they're not calling for, and there is no such thing.
And my understanding is Atman's family is particularly wealthy and owns a great deal of the resources of the country.
You're absolutely correct, Russ. When I was there, that's what I found out. I was like, unbelievable. All the resources of the country that should go to the Kazakh people,
Yeah.
is taking over. So this is where the corruption, but till people stand up, that's to me what the Kazakhs wants to do, except I'm putting question mark now.
Yeah. Who's behind
Who's
the
behind?
news behind the news?
Exactly.
What's really going on here?
Exactly.
World
World
peace.
peace.
Thank you, world peace.
Thank you, world peace.
Do you think that this will be a wake-up call for all countries that their national security laws must be strengthened? For example, NED or CIA will complicate their work?
Yeah, the NAD stands for National Endowment for Democracy.
Oh, that one.
So, and yes, it will complicate that. And this is where, for example, when I came across that info, which was not released, by the way, that the State Department is requesting $10.7 million from Congress to allocate towards strengthening democracy and human rights. It's the same playbook that we did in Ukraine, and I don't remember the exact figure. I have it in my book, the exact amount of money that was allocated to that. You're talking millions of dollars.
Well, what we're seeing is all over Southeast Asia, that particular organization is noted for being troublemaking.
Exactly. So this is why we asked at the beginning, who do you think could be behind this one? So yes, they will have a hard time if people wants to move forward, because they got tired of this Nazarbayev and the cronies that's taking. What always saddens me is countries that are so wealthy naturally.
Yeah.
The people do not benefit. So what the heck is the government doing? What is the purpose of a government in that case?
Or defeat itself.
Exactly. Or even for us here in the United States, where is the government in a sense of for the people, by the people, working for the people? We don't see that here. And this is a reality that some of us are not willing to accept.
I ran across a statistic not long ago about how many of the people in our representatives and senators and so on who become wealthy while they've been in office. I think it's now 100%. I'm not sure. It was 98%.
Yeah. To my knowledge, it was about most of the members of Congress were millionaires except one guy. That was to my knowledge back then. So.
And we're not going to mention names.
Nah.
Okay.
All right.
Stephen.
Good to see you, Stephen.
Is the U.S. in the background destabilizing the country, therefore the region? Like what U.S. is doing in Cambodia, Thailand, Myanmar, etc., because it's very odd. This is so suddenly a huge crisis.
You hit the nail on the head. You got it, because that's exactly where personally, and again, this is my opinion, that's how I will interpret it, because all of a sudden, I didn't see this coming. Usually I pay very close attention to what's going on around the world. That's just what I do. And I did not see this coming, because all of a sudden, it becomes the headline around the world.
Right.
And that's usually for tactics like what took place in Thailand, what took place in Myanmar, in Hong Kong, in Venezuela, in Ukraine back in 2013, 11, 12, 13. It's the same pattern. So you start to see, that's how I would interpret it. But also remember, as we said earlier, the strategic importance of Kazakhstan to three major powers: Russia, China, and the US.
Yep.
So you have to keep that within the context of what it is.
Two-part question.
Okay, two-part question. Hey, look who it is.
Oh, Beryakov. Good to see you, Beryakov.
Question. Oh, one part of two. Rumor that actors in Kazakhstan speak Arabic. First reaction is to point to Turkey and this time probably planning for jihadist revolution targeting Kazakh and Xi Jinping, like using ISIS.
Xinjiang.
Xinjiang. Okay, pardon me. I have a little trouble seeing at that distance.
Like using
Yeah.
the group.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. There are certain words we can mention. You all guys know. That's why I understood what your question is, and Ross also understood where your question is going. Yes, there is the possibility, and there are some there. When I remember, I was passing through there. I did come across those who speak that language. Yes, there is a concern. As a matter of fact, just this morning, I came across information that now Turkey is taking an interest in what's going on in Kazakhstan, especially in conjunctions with Turkmenistan and Kyrgyzstan, and because in the case of Uzbekistan, I spent some time there, and I was aware of the shall we call them, the fundamentalists, or whatever groups you want to call them, which were financed by certain entities outside, not just the US.
Right.
No, there were other entities in the Gulf, in the Middle East. They were funneling money for that reason. So yeah, Turkey will be interested in this because Turkey, remember, they share certain cultural aspects with certain locations like Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan. So they will be interested in what's going on there. But also, Turkey will have to coordinate its efforts with Russia regarding this aspect. So yeah, there are those dynamics playing into that. And the second part of the question is maybe that was the one that has the second part to it.
Yes, it was. Hold on. There are a lot of questions.
Yeah,
we're scrolling through. Looks like hundreds of questions.
Yeah. So that was the whole idea with the support for groups like those. That was the reason for it. So, and the second part is
Can you
Syria,
see
Iraq.
that better?
Yeah.
I'm having trouble seeing it.
Okay, is Syria, Iraq? If this is the case, Erdogan sends on 2 boats, U.S. versus Russia and China. How long do you think both camps will be eventually annoyed and kick and plunge him into the sea? No, because I think I understood exactly where the objective of your question, where it's going, but it won't work that way, because in Syria and Iraq, those has to do with the dynamics of the Middle East, the geopolitical landscape in the Middle East, in which the United States was losing interest because Russia made it clear when it comes down to Syria. Russia made it clear there is no way the US can have a say into what took place in Syria. Second thing, both Russia and China vetoed any UN Security Council resolutions that would allow for international forces to go there.
Nice.
But the reason to all this is because Russia was very concerned about its naval base in Tartus. Tartus is strategic to Russia. Why? Because it has access to the Mediterranean. Remember, always access to the water is very important. This is why Russia is saying what it's saying about Black Sea, because it will not allow any force whatsoever, because it's a choke point for them. So that is the reason why. So the scenario in Iraq and Syria are completely different from those in now Kazakhstan. Yes, both of them share the common geopolitical objective, but from different perspectives. The US, because was realizing that it's losing interests, not losing interest, is losing its credibility and leadership in the Middle East. The second one in Central Asia is because Russia and China squeezing together to form a strong front that will prevent the establishment of any force whatsoever. That's the way I analyze this one here. So to them, it's a favorable way of doing that. Oh,
Zhuge Liang, thank you.
By the way, Zero, I appreciate you. Why I'm saying this, I appreciate all of you, of course. But he put some key questions on the comments, and I respond to them personally because they are very engaging. So I want to personally, on behalf of the team, I want to say thank you for that. So
Nabil Mal,
you got it.
it's hard to focus. Would you know if the energy crisis in Kazakhstan is due to crypto mining that shifted from China when it banned there? That doesn't seem reasonable.
Yeah, short answer from my perspective is no. This one has to do with the government started with the government increasing prices 100%.
Yeah.
You know, when you increase 100% in a society that, is kind of
on the edge.
Yeah. No, it has nothing to do with that. Plus, there's no mining of stuff, pardon me, like that in Kazakhstan as of today, to my knowledge. It's very, very important. It's a rugged terrain in Kazakhstan. So yeah.
Crypto mining like Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, not to my knowledge. No, not to my knowledge.
Well, look who it is.
Oh my God!
It's Boone.
Hi, Boone.
Is there any way for smaller countries to prevent the likes of NED to enter their country? Boy, it seems hard.
Yeah, it will be very, very challenging. Why is that? It's because, remember, the only way for that to happen, there's one way, if you don't have a diplomatic representation.
Oh.
Yeah, because this goes through the embassy, even though they are independent, so-called independent, but that's another door for the government.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We certainly see that organization sponsoring opposition all over Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
To the current governments.
Exactly. And that is why I was surprised at that $10.7 million request from the State Department, because that's where it's going to go. No, it's not. Interesting question, Boone. Thank you. Yeah, because I don't know how they're going to manage that.
R2C2. Is the trouble in Kazakhstan fueled by international powers? Will Russia and China intervene to further establish the Belt and Road Initiative? Looks like a combination of several things all occurring at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why the interpretation we have, and this is our opinion here for our channel, we don't speak on behalf of any entity whatsoever. It's the both trajectories, geopolitically and economically. So yeah, the interest about Kazakhstan from both Russia and China, they do have the interest, but from different, to Russia is geopolitical interest, to China is economic. That's how I see it on the landscape of geopolitical landscape, how it plays out. So, and also this has to do with the upcoming talks between NATO and Russia.
Just this week coming up.
Yeah. So,
Athene Wu. Hey.
Indeed.
Thank you for another question. Could it be that riots in Kazakhstan is instigated by the West? U.S. lost Afghanistan. Oh boy. Maybe the West is making a try to Kazakhstan, which has much longer shared border with China and Russia.
That's a good question. Yeah. Because here is the thing about Afghanistan, what the U.S. lost. You know what the U.S. lost?
Credibility.
Not only that, it lost intelligence coverage. Yeah, we don't have any. So the quickest thing to do is to have close by locations where the drone can go, because that's why Pakistan turned down the U.S. to establish a base for drones so they can keep an eye on Afghanistan. They said, no, you're not going to do that. So yes, that's why we asked the question, who do you think could be behind it? And when we think the West or the U.S., you always have to think in terms of the West interests and power. That's what they're aiming after. So, because this is a reflection, I believe, at the beginning of the end for the West hegemony altogether. So yes, the answer is yes. There's possibility to that, but Russia and China is not going to allow it.
VK. Was Armenia and Azerbaijan war a planned war between Russia, Turkey, Baku, since Armenia was leaning toward the West?
Not necessarily, because the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh goes way back. This is not new. Yes, the West will see an opportunity into that, but also Turkey does not want to have that close by. Iran does not want to have that close by, because what does it mean? If the West gets in, that means the installation of Western assets, military assets. As a matter of fact, Israel was thinking about providing Armenia with some advanced stuff. That Iran made it clear. I think Armenia or Azerbaijan, one or the other, and made it clear that they will have no tolerance for that, because this will be close proximity to keep an eye on what's going on in Iran. So yeah, that could be playing a role into that. And Turkey, given already the tensions that has with the U.S. and NATO, given the purchase of the S-400 missile systems. But Turkey now is moving forward. Do you know that Turkey now is building its own drones?
I saw that. Interesting, isn't it?
And advanced ones, not they're building their own armored vehicles, as far as the armor, like tankers and so forth. Their military industry is moving up. So Turkey will be interested in all this, but this is, again, who controls Central Asia, because very, very important.
East meets West. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meets West. Do you think the unrest in Kazakhstan will spread to neighboring regions in Eurasia?
Not if it is contained. If it is contained, and I don't think so it will, it's because Russia understands the ramification of letting that go out of control. China understands to the degree, but China is not going to get too involved. The other satellites, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and all the, usually they don't have a lot of weight, except for what the U.S. asked of them to do. But no, it won't spread out if it is contained. And I think the reason why Russia sent a battalion, remember, this is not sending a team of 100 people, whatever, a battalion. It's a signal to, okay, we're going to approach this in a peaceful way first. And if it's not, well, because remember, Russians came to Kazakhstan at the request of the president.
Right.
So it's not like they're forcing themselves out. This is different than Ukraine scenario. But Russia knows. If they don't manage it quickly, it could spread. But
it could really get out of control here.
But they're not going to let it. I don't see that happening.
Is that French?
Raphael, go on. Thank you, Raphael. We appreciate it.
I saw an article that says 15 mock battlefield exercises by the Pentagon. 15 times the U.S. loses all battleships they take to the China Sea. What say you? We've seen the same thing. I think the number was 18.
Exactly. Yeah, we did see the same thing, Raphael. It was 18 scenarios that I came across, that in all scenarios, the U.S. naval lost. So,
and we know that the Chinese have been practicing on targets that were similar to.
Exactly. Speaking of China, I just came across an info yesterday from overseas that has to do with the satellite. China developed a specific satellite that the analysts in the Pentagon, when they put a description of it, they said they couldn't believe how crisp the pictures taken on Earth from that satellite. It's called, believe it or not, I do keep my stuff handy here just in case, because I took interest on it from a military dimensions, and that one has to do with hold on, let me get it right here, because I saved it for our viewers in case we came across that one. And that one's called China's Beijing 3. It's called Beijing 3 satellite, which can take high resolution photos of US cities from space. So experts say The photographs are crisp enough to recognize a military vehicle and the type of weapon it might be carrying.
Oh, wow.
The Chinese satellites can capture a photograph of a vast region around the US city in just 42 seconds. So, you can read in between what it means.
And the Pentagon is certainly paying attention.
Well,
to
that's
that.
why the analyst, when I came across that report, anytime analyst in the Pentagon comments on something, that's of military significance.
Okay, last one.
Okay, last question.
All right. Journey to the east. Thank you.
Hey guys, do you think China should change their diplomatic form from non-interference to plan for help?
To open for help.
To open for help
if needed. If needed. No. That's my answer. I don't know what Ross' answer is, but my answer is no. It won't be wise. The reason being, because that will change the perception. And remember, in international relations, context matters. So if China changes the behavior diplomatically, it's just the message that it is saying, oh, all of a sudden China is doing this. So it won't be wise, because culturally speaking, China approached certain things based on their culture
and based on their history, and that would be going against the history of China.
Exactly, and that's why I don't see it. So, well, guys, we want to thank you so much for joining us here today, because, as I always say, I truly enjoy Fridays interacting with our viewers. So we can't thank you enough for your support. It means a lot to us. But make sure check us out on geopolitics.locals.com. It's because we are tired of this censorship. I feel personally, and I speak for myself here, I'm not telling you 100% what I wanted to tell you, because anytime we use a word here and there, we get, Elizabeth deals with this on a regular basis. If it weren't for her, half of our videos will not be released, because we have to fight it. And it's like, okay, why the censorship? And personally, to me, that's a red flag. So we are moving slowly into it. So check us out on geopolitics.locals.com, because we're gonna be uploading videos there. Also, check us out on Rumble. We are on Rumble and growing. As a matter of fact, we have, how many members do we have there already?
1,800.
So almost 2,000 already. We just started this one about last week, I think. So check us out on Rumbles also, because we're gonna be putting and Ross and Elizabeth, when they do their analysis stuff, it's gonna be mainly on locals, because whatever they're
we're free to say what we want to that, and give you information that you might not find any other place on the planet. Okay, and Twitter. Oh, it went away. I'm having a lot of trouble seeing this today.
Anyway, so you guys, we thank you very much. So as always, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.